Well, hello. How is everybody on this Monday? Just getting everything still set up. So sorry, I'm kind of quiet at the moment. So if you guys are hopping in on TikTok, there is a poll of what we want to talk about today. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can just comment. I have it across the screen. And I'm trying this live with my dog in the room. She's been a little bit of a hellion today, so we'll see how this goes. Oh, and we've already started. I swear. Oh my gosh, I was doing a coaching session. I'll tell you all this story while we're just getting started. I was doing a coaching session yesterday, and so I have a dog and a cat. My cat was on a whole nother level of obnoxious during this coaching session, and he literally jumped up this way, like as though there's not stuff all right here, and jumped up, hit my computer, and knocked everything over. Like, computer flipped backwards and everything right in the middle of my coaching session. I was just like, I'm so sorry. It's the first time he's ever done something like that. Usually he's pretty chill. He just sleeps most of the day. So that was embarrassing. How's everybody's Monday going? Where's everybody from? I think this is like the earliest I've gone live before, so we'll see how this goes. Usually I go live later in the evening. Oh, Kentucky. I love Kentucky. It's beautiful up there. Upstate New York, Reno, Florida. MS, that's Mississippi, right? North Carolina. My zodiac is Taurus, and I am Taurus through and through. Okay, guys, so just a reminder, I do have my group coaching starting tomorrow. It's called Unshackled and Set Free. It's how to transform your heartbreak into strength in 4 strategic steps. So we're going to go through the 4 most common things that we struggle with after leaving a narcissist. It's going to be emotional management, reducing the intensity of your triggers, helping managing your anxiety, and also processing your grief. It's 4 sessions total. It starts tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time. Anybody that's registered does get a recording of all of the sessions. So even if you can't make them all, don't worry, you'll still get the content. I do still have spots open for that. The link to that is in my bio on all my platforms. If you prepay for all 4 sessions, they're only 20 a session, so it's $80, or you can break it up into 3 payments, and it's 3 payments of 40. It makes them 30 a piece. So I do have that going on. I'm really excited about it because those are the 4 things that I struggled with the most that I just really needed strategies on. So that's what we're learning, is how to overcome it. Not just like, oh, this is what happens, and it's how to deal with it and how to overcome it. So if you have questions on that or just want more details, feel free to DM me. I'll answer any questions that you have, but our first session starts tomorrow. It's only 4 weeks. So we do have that going on right now too. And I like the group coaching sessions too, because it's kind of like you just meet other people in the community. I only take a max of 15 on any group that I do. So that way you can still ask questions and get personal help too, but it helps break some of the isolation too. Okay, let's see how it's going on the polls. Oh, wow. Managing emotions is like winning by a landslide. Actually, it has 100% of the votes on all the platforms. Oh, thank you. Blue's my favorite color. So, by the way, if you are struggling with managing emotions at all after leaving a narcissist, that's literally week 1 of our group coaching session, is emotional management strategies. Because this is just kind of stuff that nobody really talks about. Especially on the platforms and everything, there's a lot of information out there, like the what, but there's not a lot of the hows, like how to deal with it. So I think we all have enough information out there. So I think it's time to start shifting our focus on what to do and not just the info. And I think I'm going to be if I'm honest, procrastinator. I'm still finishing up the the content for tomorrow's session, but I know I have at least 7 strategies that I give. I'm struggling with obsessive thinking. Oh my god, that's what I struggle with the most. And here's what's weird. Like the emotional management really ties in with the obsessive thinking too, because when you're constantly thinking about this over and over, your emotions range a lot because there's going to be times where you're really sad and then like an hour later you're pissed off and then 2 hours later it's like you're completely relieved that you're not with them. So they kind of tie in together, and that's one of the things that we're going to be working on in the group too. It's how to break these down individually but work on it as a whole, if that makes sense, where you're just able to overcome your own mind, because it feels very addictive and feels very out of your control. At least it did for me. I felt like I was completely out of control of my own mind, and it was so frustrating. And that's what lasted the longest for me. So I don't just sympathize with all of that. I completely empathize with it because it's exactly what I went through. So that's why I do this, is because I try to be the resource that I really wish that I had had back then. Okay. Oh, oh no. We have a change in the poll. Now it's a tie between obsessive thinking and managing emotions. It was verbal and emotional abuse, but it was starting to get physical. So it was kind of the same thing with me. It was by far emotional abuse, 100%. And it was the day that I kicked him out is when it was crossing the line of physical. I still didn't actually get like hit, spit on, but it was crossing that line. And that's when I finally kicked him out. The link to those classes, yes. If you're on TikTok, I can't post links in those comments. You'll have to go to the link in my bio for TikTok. But oh my gosh, Duchess, come here. She of course grabs the loudest toy that she has right now. But if you're on Facebook, I'm going to post the link in the comments right here, actually. Okay, so if you're on Facebook or YouTube, I just commented the link to sign up. It'll be a lot easier to just go that way. If you're on TikTok, I'm sorry, you kind of have to go back to my page and click the link in my bio and go from there. So yes, spitting in the US is also considered assault too. Honestly, I just didn't, my brain wasn't even there. Like it wasn't even there. It was just about getting him out and keeping him out. And looking back, I don't even know. I honestly, with that in particular, I always tell people do what you need to do legally. I think in my situation though, I don't really know if it would have brought me any closer to peace. Um, it might have. I honestly don't know. I've never really thought about that much. You have the same decorative wall plate thing. I've had it for years. I love it. I like it because there's so many different colors in it that I can kind of do whatever I want. Like there's blues in it, there's greens, there's like a taupey type color, there's like a mustard yellow, which I would never really do a lot with mustard yellow, but it works with all this. So that's why I kept it for so long, because I can, whatever room it's in, I can redo it based on what's up there. Sorry, I'm just noticing. I think my dog spilled something in my entryway. Lovely. Oh, well, thank you for saying that. You've helped me immensely. Thank you. What makes it? Oh, I have. Hold on. Sorry, being on multiple platforms can can trigger my ADD like really bad. No, we're not doing this. No, ma'am. So my dog, she gets really bored easily. She's not necessarily hyper. She just gets bored. And when she gets bored, she just walks around whining because nobody's paying attention to her. Like, oh, poor thing. I think someone asked they asked the question, would all of this work if your parents are a narcissist? So to answer the question, yes. Like it doesn't really matter the dynamic of the relationship with a narcissist, whether it's a parent, whether it's a friendship, whether it's a romantic relationship, the mental processes that you go through after are the same, because narcissistic abuse, the details of it are different for everybody's situation, but the process is the same. And that's regardless of the kind of relationship. Even what actually, my The romantic relationship, when I left that one, it was absolutely the worst, but I left a really horrible toxic work environment. I went through all the same stuff, like all the same things. um, so I don't know if that question was related to like if the group coaching applies to that. If that is, then yes, it does. But just in general, anything that I talk about, it doesn't matter the relationship. It's it's the same. Like it really is. So again, guys, we have the group coaching Unshackled and Set Free. It's starting tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time. There's 4 sessions total. It's only $80 for all the sessions if you prepay, or it's 3 payments of 40, which makes them 30 a session. Either way, we're going to go over the 4 most common struggles after leaving a narcissist, which is emotional management, reducing your anxiety, reducing the intensity of your triggers, and then also dealing with the grief. And it's really just all we're talking about is the strategies on how to overcome these. And all 4 of these is also what plays a big role into the obsessive thinking cycle. So it's kind of all encompassing, but broken down into 4 parts. Even if you can't make all the sessions, anybody that's registered, even if you don't end up making any of them, if you register and pay for it, you get video copies of all of each session. So you'll have it either way. Okay, let's see what's going on with the poll, and then we can move on. Okay, so it's a dead tie. It's 50% between obsessive thinking and managing emotions. So we'll just, and you know what? That's really easy because, like I was talking earlier, the obsessive thinking really does play a role into the emotional irregularity, because when you're replaying things, so okay, just in case you guys, I'm going to say this term a lot, so I want to make sure I define it first. So if you've not heard the term rumination before, that's the fancy term of obsessive thinking. I like to call it the obsessive thinking cycle because I feel like that describes it a little bit better and it's not as clinical sounding, if that makes sense. But that's essentially what it is. Pause. I have to close my back door because my dog came back in. Oh, that was graceful. So the clinical definition of rumination is it is a negative, repetitive thought process that's on a continual loop in the mind. That's a summary of the clinical definition. And what happens is that we find ourselves in some kind of mental replay, whether we're replaying the relationship over and over again, maybe we're replaying the discard, maybe we're trying to like figure out answers, or I'll just kind of tell you some of the things I struggled with. So one of my biggest struggles was I was cyber stalking my ex like really bad, and at the time I didn't even really know what I was searching for, but it was very addictive. Like I was hardcore cyber stalking. And now what I think I was looking for is I was just looking for how he was acting or what he was doing to somehow explain what happened. And I know that makes no sense, but like I was just looking for answers in some way, form, or fashion. And so I turned to cyber stalking. Some people have a really hard time cyber stalking the new supply, which makes total sense. You can be replaying certain aspects of the relationship. Mine, I was replaying like the last 5 months of the relationship over and over again because I found out after we broke up that he had been cheating for the last 5 months. So I was like replaying that time period the most and like filling gaps. And it's like, oh, this makes more sense now. Or, oh, so he wasn't just cleaning the house. Or, oh, that's why he was always going into work early or leaving work late. Because apparently there was a lot of extracurricular activities happening behind my back in the last 5 months. So you're replaying certain aspects of it over and over again, and it does feel very addictive. The problem with this is that when you're replaying all these aspects over and over again, it can cause or play into the emotional dysregulation that you have. So you can go from feeling very relieved that you're not dealing with them on a day-to-day basis, and then like 30 minutes later you're in the shower and you're bawling, or you are fine when you wake up, and on your drive to work you just get angry. You might be a little bit short fused, whatever it might be. So they really do play a big role together. So I like to ask this question too because it kind of helps me guide like where to go and what to talk about. I want you guys to comment on whatever platform you're on. Comment like some of the what emotion you would say that you feel the most. Like if you had to pick one, is it like anger? Is it grief? Is it sadness? Is it relief? Is it betrayal? What do you feel like you struggle with the most? And let's just see if there's kind of a common denominator. And I'm gonna plug in my laptop so it doesn't die in the middle of my life because that would be awkward. I keep believing if I would have done something differently, there would have been a different outcome. Yeah, I struggle with that too. Especially if you're like a I just posted a video on TikTok actually talking about that. That when you're a people pleaser, or if you have people pleasing tendencies, you can struggle with that particular thought quite a bit. Okay, so I'm seeing. Oh, there they all come. Sorry, the comments like come in like in waves. Oh, yay! You signed up. I can't wait to meet you tomorrow. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of betrayal, a lot of resentment, anger. So I'd probably say from what I'm seeing, the top three are anger, betrayal, and resentment, with a sprinkle of relief here and there. The level of deception and lies blew my mind. Oh, for sure. Absolutely. It was the same thing for me because I couldn't wrap my brain around how someone can do all of that. Like I couldn't. I really couldn't. And I couldn't do it because I'm not like him. I wasn't capable of doing all the things that he did. Okay, so it seems like anger, betrayal, and resentment are kind of the top ones. So again, just because I know some new people have popped in, if you are struggling with emotional management, that is literally like week one of our 4-week group coaching that I'm starting tomorrow. That's the first thing we're covering is emotional management strategies. So you get 4 sessions, and we're talking the 4 topics: are emotional management, reducing anxiety, reducing your intensity of your triggers, and dealing with the grief. These are the 4 most common struggles that we have after leaving a narcissist. And all we're talking about is strategies on how to handle and overcome them. And even if you can't make all the sessions, or even if you can't make any of them, if you've paid and you're registered, you get copies of all the coaching. So it's kind of like yours to keep for as long as you want it. If you're on TikTok, the link to register that is in my bio. If you are on Facebook or YouTube, just scroll up just a little bit, and I actually posted the link. Actually, I'll post it again just right now. It'll be easier for you guys. So the cost, there's 2 payment options. If you prepay for all the sessions, it's only $80, so it's $20 per session, or you can break it up into 3 payments of 40, which makes it 30 a session. So either way, I try to make it as affordable as possible. Okay, so when it comes to the anger, first of all, understand that anger is completely justifiable. Like, it's completely justified. Like, I would be kind of surprised if you weren't angry because you were completely violated. Like, whether it's emotionally violated, whether it's physically violated, and your trust was violated. Like, someone, and this is the part that was so hard for me, it was to understand and really accept the fact that even though it was 100% real for me, like my love and affection towards this person, that wasn't reciprocated, probably even 25% on his end. Like it was just, it was so hard for me to wrap my brain around that. And that obviously you have a right to feel angry about it. You also have to remember that you're dealing with an extreme amount of grief after leaving this relationship specifically, because you're grieving so many different things. Like you're grieving the future that you thought that you were building with them. You're grieving parts of yourself that you had to give up in order to make this relationship work. You're grieving the person that you thought that they were and realizing that that didn't exist. And you're grieving a person that's still alive, and nobody really teaches you how to do that. Like we learn about the 5 steps of grief when someone, is no longer with us or like whatever, but nobody teaches you how to grieve somebody that's still on the planet. But we do have to remember that anger is one of the 5 stages of grief. So it's part of the process. And what I see, a mistake that I see people make quite a bit, especially like with people that I've coached one-on-one, and I even see it on the comments a lot, is people tend to try to dismiss how they feel because it's like, oh, well, this person was terrible. I shouldn't even feel angry, or I shouldn't even be sad, or I shouldn't miss them. I shouldn't even be grieving them. And it's kind of like we dismiss how we feel a lot. And that's a huge mistake. What we need to do instead is just embrace the fact that we are feeling it. Because when you embrace the emotion, you actually do reduce the intensity of the emotion. I had said, I'll answer this question really quick because I think it's a good question. So, do I miss my narcissistic partner? No, absolutely not. Not anymore. Did I when I left them? Yeah, absolutely I did. Because you have to remember, um, it's still a relationship ending. Like there's a void now in your life because you did have, and again, this is regardless of whatever dynamic the relationship was. So if it was a friendship, if it was a romantic, if it was even in a work environment, like it's still a relationship that has ended. Missing them's normal. Most of the time, what we miss though is we usually miss the version of them that they wanted us to believe was true, or we miss the facade that they created, um, or we miss the version of them that we wanted them to be. But just because that there's a void in your life now, that doesn't mean that they were the right person to fill that void. And that's what we have to remember is we can't let our emotion of missing them, or really emotions at all, allow us to make an emotionally driven decision, like breaking our no contact or seeking revenge or like whatever it might be. So you just, again, I just accepted the fact like, yeah, this emotion's here, just embrace it. And when you embrace it, instead of resisting it, it actually processes faster because you're just letting it come. You're just letting it come and go. And so I really would. I would kind of like, you know what? I'm angry today, and that is what it is. And it was like I was just like, bringing it in and just accepting it because it's I don't know the way that our brain. Well, I do know the way that our brain works so much is when you try to suppress certain things or you try to like push things off. It's like the brain argues with you, and it's like, no, I want to deal with this now. It's like when you say, "Don't think about a purple elephant." Everybody automatically thinks of a purple elephant. It's the same kind of concept. Um, where we try to ignore the emotions, they almost come back worse because it's like, no, we need to deal with this and we need to deal with this now. So you just have to be careful with that. But that was a good question. Thank you. So, okay, I had a couple people on TikTok say that they get triggered a lot. I'm going to segue a little bit just for a moment. I know we're talking about obsessive thinking and managing emotions, but I do want to segue for a second on why the triggers are so intense. So, by the way, I did a podcast interview on the podcast. It's called Narc and Me, and we talked the whole time about triggers. So if you're interested in listening to that, just go to the link in my bio on all my platforms. And if you scroll down a little bit, I have where all my podcast interviews are. And it was with the Narc and Me. And I have it on there where it says like managing triggers or something like that. But we did a whole podcast interview on that because triggers are really intense whenever you leave this. And here's why. One of the main reasons that they're so intense is because this person caused you trauma, like plain and simple, like they caused you trauma. So it happens. I'm going to try not to get too neuroscience-y with you, but if y'all don't know, I'm getting my doctorate in occupational therapy. I have a year left. I'm almost done. But I've spent a lot of time like researching and studying how trauma affects the brain. And what happens to your brain, there's these two areas. We're just going to keep it very simple. There's two areas in your brain. There's like what's called the emotional learning brain, which is like your or emotional brain, which is your limbic system, and your thinking brain, which is your neocortex. The emotion brain, that's what's responsible for your fight or flight. Like very simple. There's a lot of processes to it, but like just simply put, that's the one that is responsible for initiating that. And then your neocortex, that's just like your, what we call rest and digest. That's just your normal processing. That's what we're supposed to be functioning off of. The problem is when we're in these traumatic and abusive relationships, is the area of the brain that becomes the most active is actually the limbic system. And that was never intended to be our baseline operation. So And yes, part of it is the amygdala and hippocampus. But and again, I'm just kind of keeping it very simple. No, thank you. But sorry, I got distracted. Something popped up on my phone. So, anyways, when your limbic system is overactivated all the time, like it's just your main driver, which is what happens in these relationships, your stress response becomes hypersensitive and it happens very quickly. So, let's say that you like, one of the worst triggers for me that happened all the time because he drove a very generic car. Well, I'm just going to leave it at that. So, I would see his car all the time on the road, all the time. So driving was like a trigger in itself. Um, the whole activation of the stress response happens in seconds. So by the time that you're able to register, like, okay, that's not their car, I'm safe, I'm fine, you're already in full blown fight or flight mode. Like anxiety's up, heart rate's up, blood pressure is probably up, like all because it's so hyper activated or hypersensitive, I'm sorry, that it just happens so quickly that before you can even bring the thinking brain back into it and calm everything down, you're already so on like if you're on a scale of 1 to 10, you're already at like a 9. And that's why your triggers are so intense after this is because the stress response is so hypersensitive. Because if you think about it, after any breakup, if you hear your song, it's going to make you sad. Or if you find something of theirs, it's going to make you sad. And I'm talking about healthy breakups. Like all of that stuff is normal. And we go through those normal things too after we leave these relationships. But the problem is because of the stress that our brain has been under, the response is so incredibly intense. And again, this is actually, I think, week 3 in my group coaching is we're going to be breaking down like how to deal with this because the problem with triggers is that sometimes what we do is we just try to avoid them instead of learning how to manage them and reduce them because the reality is you can't just avoid triggers. You can't just stop them necessarily because unless you just hold up in your house 2020 style and just like didn't go anywhere, didn't do anything, like you can't completely control your environment. So what we need to do instead is learn how to manage the triggers. And overall, how you do that is it's just a process, like it's a skill set. Like I'm telling you, I wish that I had known all of this back then because I've learned all this getting my clinical training in school. And I'm just like, God, I really needed all of this back then. But that's literally what we're talking about in week 3. So if that is something that you're struggling with, like please sign up for the group coaching because this is stuff that I desperately needed back then. So again, we start that tomorrow, 6 p.m. Central Time. It's 4 sessions total. You get recordings of all of them, even if you don't make them. If you pay and register, you get it. That's my philosophy. So that's why your triggers are so intense. And I know I went on a really long tangent on that, and I'm sorry. If y'all have never been on my live before, you'll learn very quickly. I go down rabbit holes. Just is what it is. Okay, let me just make sure I didn't miss any other questions. Oh my gosh. Tiff, of course I remember you. Oh my gosh, that's like a blast from the past. Hey Tiff, if you'll do me a favor, please send me a message if you're still on there. I'd love to catch up with you. I'm getting stonewalled from my husband for a week now. Oh, I hate the stonewalling thing is just it's so freaking manipulative. Okay, so back to the obsessive thinking. So let's talk about uh, do I think oh this is a good question. Do I think once a cheater, always a cheater? Oh, okay, I need to be careful with this answer. I don't okay, I'm not a black and white answer kind of guy. And here's why. And just human beings in general, we're just not very black and white. Like it's not always cookie cutter like that. Here's what I will say. I will say that I think everyone, I'm not excluding anybody. I think anyone is capable of change. Whether they do the change or not, I that's up to them. I think that anybody's capable of changing. I think even people that are diagnosed narcissists are capable of changing. Is it likely that they will? No, because ultimately, at the end of the day, regardless of, and I'm sorry, but regardless of what has happened to them on their life up until this point and why they do what they do, because look, again, I'm getting my doctorate. I am fully well aware that people that go through childhood trauma often end up being narcissistic. I know that. But at the same time, at some point in time, grow up and be an adult and stop blaming everybody else that your mommy left you when you were 19 months old. It's not everybody else's fault. I have childhood trauma too, but I'm not a narcissist. I'm not taking it out on everybody else because I decided to work on what I needed to work on. Am I stigmatizing? Am I anything like that? No, I'm not. Because at the end of the day, it may be more difficult for you, but it's not impossible. And the reason why I know that is because working in the field that I work in, I have seen people that make that choice. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to treat people this way, but I don't know how. How do I do it? My ex was the first person to admit that he had self-sabotaging behaviors. But would he go to therapy? No. That's a choice. Even because if he's sitting here saying, I screw up every good thing, because this is exactly what he said to me. I screw up every good thing that happens in my life. And I know I probably need therapy, but I'm not going to go. That's a choice. I'm not going to excuse that because of his mommy issues. Like, you are still an adult and you need to make adult decisions. So that's another rant. So do I think once a cheater, always a cheater? More than likely, yes. Am I saying black and white? No, I can't make that kind of claim. But that's my 2 cents. I got a little intense about that. Sorry. Okay, I'll tell you why I got a little intense about that. Because I've had a couple people comment lately about like, please. I'm sorry, this comment just drives me nuts. But people like commented on one of my videos that went viral, and they were like, please remember that, you know, narcissists dealt with childhood trauma. And I'm like, I know that. So did I, though. Like, I'm not going to use someone's childhood trauma you can't really allow people to use their childhood trauma as a justification or a crutch for them being abusive. I'm sorry. Like, at some point, you're an adult. Get help. Get help and stop abusing people. Like, I don't know. That's my 2 cents. You might lose followers over that, but if it is what it is. Mm. Who didn't have childhood trauma of some sort? I mean, for real though, like, good luck meeting somebody that doesn't have some sort of childhood trauma. Even if you came from a great home, like, there's still just things that happen to you. Other thing for the rest is just good luck meeting someone that doesn't have trauma. Like, that's not an excuse. It's not demonizing. It's not making them out to be anything that they're not. Like, it's just facts. Like, I'm sorry. Like, it is. Like, I have childhood trauma. I'm not going to use that as a crutch for behaviors. Like, if I do something that I shouldn't do, or whatever, I'm going to be the first one to be like, I'm the quickest person to apologize. Like, that's one thing that I value myself a lot, because even with my kids, if I like overreact to something, I'm the first person to sit down with my kids. I'm so sorry. Dad overreacted, and please forgive me. That's a big thing for me. I'm not going to tell my kids like, well, I have childhood trauma, so just get over it. Like, no. An adult. Grow up. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm reading this comment because I want to make sure I understand the question. Oh, I don't know what that is, but it's called hand hearts. Thank you for whatever that was on TikTok. On the TikTok. On Facebook, can you re-ask this question? I'm reading it, but for some reason it's not clicking in my brain. If you don't mind. I just want to make sure I answer it correctly. See, and this is a great example. So over here on TikTok, my brother had trauma from our dad and chose to be a fantastic dad. That choice can be made. It can. And look, I really am. I am the first person to believe anybody with any kind of mental health disorder can live a very healthy and productive life. I really, truly do believe that. But they have to make the choice to do it. And they have to be the ones that want it. And they have to do it for them. They cannot do it. You can, like, Okay, it's kinda like I equate this to, like, getting healthy. Like, when I was growing up, my dad was very morbidly obese my entire life. When I started to have kids, my dad completely turned his life around. Like, he went from about 300 pounds to about 180, 190 at one point, all through just working out and eating well. The motivating factor for him was to be able to play with his grandkids. But why he continues to do it is because it's good for him, because he wants to be the best version of himself. You can't put your foundation in your own mental health in other people. Because my ex used to try to do that. Like, well, if you ever leave me, I wouldn't take care of myself anymore. Because he didn't have MPD, but he did have another mental health disorder that he was taking medication on. And that's what he would tell me all the time. If he ever left, meaning if I left him, he would stop taking his medication. That's putting all the burden on me. Like, no, you can't do that. First of all, that's very manipulative, to put that kind of burden on somebody else. And number two, that is a insecure foundation for taking care of yourself. Like, you need to do it for yourself. You don't need to do it for anybody else. Other people can be motivating factors, but not the foundation. Um, but I do. I believe that anybody can live a productive life if they decide to put in the work. Oh, it's absolutely another form of abuse. 100%. I can't. Okay, let me read it again. I don't know why this is not clicking in my brain. Okay, I think I understand what you're saying. So, do people? Okay, I may be completely wrong with what you're asking. So the question is, no, don't apologize. It's just my brain. I'm very all over the place today, if you can't tell. Um, so when it comes to victims of like narcissistic abuse, is it more about a lack of self love or their own childhood trauma? That's what I think. That's how it's registering in my brain, and I think it could be either or. I think childhood trauma can kind of get you to go in one direction or the other. For me, I will be completely honest, it all kind of played together. It's so funny. It's so funny you asked this question actually, because literally just made a video about this that I haven't posted yet. About like how I fell for a narcissistic person. So y'all get a little preview. Um, One of the things that made me so susceptible was my lack of self worth and value that I had in myself, which was none. And that started like way back in middle school. And it made me very codependent. It made me very people pleasing. And it's weird because I had good parents. Nobody has perfect parents, but I had good parents. I had no abandonment issues with my parents. Like, they weren't narcissistic at all. Like, they were very supportive. They made so many sacrifices for me, but that doesn't mean I didn't have childhood trauma. You know what I mean? I just grew up eh, just feeling very inadequate. I knew I was different than the other guys. I didn't know why for a while, but I knew something was different about me from very early on. But because of how I was raised, I had a really hard time accepting that. So my value was very much based on how other people viewed me and what their opinion was of me. So if like people liked me, I felt good about myself, but if people bullied me, I didn't. Or whatever. There was very few things in my life. And what I say in the videos, I had what was called compartmentalized confidence. Like, I knew that if I was on the stage, I knew you couldn't touch me because I knew I was good at singing. I knew I was good at theater. That I had confidence in. Sports, not really. Grades, I was pretty good at, so I was pretty confident in some of that stuff. So I had compartmentalized confidence, but as far as like fitting in and you know fitting the mold, all of that, I didn't. So I felt very kind of on outside looking in. And I also went to a very small school, so that didn't necessarily help either, because it was kind of hard to find my crowd. 'Cause, well, it's hard to find your group when you only have 20 people in your class. Um, so, anyways, like all of this, like really played a role into how I started to live my adult life, and words of affirmation ended up becoming, and still is to this day, like my number one love language. Um, and so when I met the narcissistic person, I had actually just come out of the closet. I was in the process of getting a divorce. Um, I just gotten kicked out of the worship program at my church. I was losing friends left and right. So like even though I was stepping into my truth and was kind of in a way celebrating accepting who I was, there was a lot of grief going on at the same time because it's like you're grieving what was, but celebrating what's coming, if that makes sense. It's kind of complicated, but my world was falling apart. And so when he came into the picture, um, and he's telling me all these things, and he's just like love bombing the crap out of me, and telling me, "Oh yeah, I want monogamy and the house and the kids and the dog in the yard and blah 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 blah." I was putting so much value in what he was saying to me and what his words were. And I was putting a lot of value in the fantasy that I created because in my mind, I kind of fantasized this whole relationship of like, oh, how great is this? Like, I come out and the first guy I meet, it's happily ever after. And he got me in an extreme, yeah, he did. He got me at a very vulnerable place in my life. And I even though I saw all the red flags, like I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I saw them all. I wasn't blindsided by anything. I made the choice to put more value in the fantasy and the words that he was saying than I was putting in what I knew was right. Because what I knew what was right for me was to wait and to take time and to let the dust settle of everything that was going on and to like I just gotten to this place of self-acceptance, so I needed to get to know who I was again. And I knew that was the smarter thing to do, but I put more weight and more value because I didn't have enough self-worth and self-value yet. I have worked a ton on that because one of the most important questions after leaving a narcissist is, well, what the hell's happened to me in my life that's allowed me to accept these kind of behaviors from people? And that is one of the most gruesome but most important questions that you have to answer in order to prevent this from happening again. And being able to set healthy boundaries and being able to love yourself enough that you're not going to you won't accept this again. Like you can ask my people. I'm very no bullshit now. It's like I don't tolerate it like at all. Like I really don't. I either walk away before I do something stupid, or I let you know, no, we're not doing that like at all. Like it's just. But growing up, I never valued myself enough to be that way. I just bent. Like I went with the flow. I would change plans last minute. You know, if like my friends wanted to change the plans last minute, didn't matter how hard I worked on something. It's like, oh sure, whatever. Like I didn't use my own voice for a very very long time. Whoa, another big long tangent. Sorry. Big long answer. It's really hard to but it's hard with some of these questions sometimes, like for me to give you a quick, short answer. So again, just in case you've hopped in kind of later since I've announced it, I am starting a group coaching. It's called Unshackled and Set Free. It's transforming your heartbreak into strength in 4 strategic steps. We're going to talk about the 4 most common hurdles after leaving a narcissist, which is emotional management, managing your anxiety, reducing the intensity of your triggers, and processing the grief. It's 4 sessions total. If you register and you paid, you get recordings of all the sessions. So don't worry if you miss one or whatever, or even if you miss all of them, you'll still get all of them. Like, don't worry about that at all. If you prepay for all the sessions, it's $80, which makes them 20 a piece, or you can do 3 payments of 40, which makes them $30 a piece. Either way, if you're on TikTok, you just have to go to the link in my bio. If you're on Facebook and YouTube, just click the link that I just posted. We start that tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time. I would love to help you guys. This is the stuff that I struggled with the most, and all we're doing, it's 40 a month, yes. So it's a split payment. So it's not a subscription. It's just a split payment. So it's like you'll pay 40, and then a month later it's the next 40, and then 1 month later it's the final one. Does that make sense? Yeah, I made sure it didn't say like subscription or anything because I know that kind of freaks people out. It's 3 drafts total and then you're done if you do that way. What was I saying? Anyways, it must not have been that important. 6 p.m. Central Time. And it's going to be on every Tuesday. So it'll be like the next 4 Tuesdays. But like I said, even if you can't make it live, I would love to work with you live because I'm only taking a max of 15 people. So that way, like, you can have a little bit of like a group environment with it too, and help with some of the isolation, because when you hear that other people are struggling with the same thing that you are, it always helps. But I'm just taking a max of 15. But even if you can't make them live, if you just want the content and the strategies and all of that, just sign up, and I send all the recordings at the end of week 4. Um, and yeah, and I give like worksheets and stuff. All that's included. Like, you don't have to do anything extra. Like, once you're signed up, you're good. But yeah, if y'all have any other questions, feel free to comment them in here, or you can even DM me and I'll answer any questions that you got. I know live is always better, but okay, let me see. Can you tell us about trauma bonding? Yes. Can you clarify just a little bit more, like specifically about it you'd like me to talk about? Because that's a little broad, so I can go. I need the structure of narrowing it down, or else I'll be all over the place with that. How do I deal with him using the court systems to further abuse me? Okay, so here's just the way I'm going to answer this question in general about how to deal with the things that they do, and just no matter if it's through the court system, directly at you, no matter what, you have to remember that the actions that they claim, or the actions that they do against you, ultimately have nothing to do with you. It has everything to do with them. It's not a reflection of your lack of worth. It's not a reflection of who you are as a person. It has a reflection. It's a complete reflection of the monster that's inside them. And as far as like, I will tell you, I'm the first person to refer out when someone knows more about something than I do. If you need to see someone with content about like the court side of things specifically, if you're not following La Disco Mama, it's LE_disco_mama. Make sure you're following her, because she talks about that quite a bit, because she's had to go through it all in the court system. She also does coaching too. Anybody that like any of my clients that are going through the court, I always am like, you need to at least do one session with her. She's great with that. But I would just, very generic stuff when it comes to the court system stuff. Obviously, keep everything written communication. Do not retaliate. If you have to, do your communication just via lawyer instead of person to person, like, if you know what I'm saying. And just don't internalize their actions where it's a reflection of you. Just know anytime that they're doing this kind of stuff, it is to get a reaction and a response out of you, to make you look like the crazy one. So remember what the motive is of that too. I watched your video on Narc app. Amazing content. Oh, thank you. Okay, let me. I want to make sure. Okay, abuse person is. Hold on. Sorry, I'm just reading comments. Bear with me. They all like come in at like one time, so it can get a little overwhelming sometimes. Can you tell me why I would dissociate in conversations with people even though I've left? Is it, well, okay, honestly, dissociating in just conversations in general, like kind of having this almost like ADD, ADHD kind of tendencies, it is actually a very common side effect of trauma. It's actually one of the top side effects of trauma, is having ADD type symptoms. And that's a whole side tangent that I could go down. When I was growing up, the whole like just push a pill on them was really big when it came to ADD. And it's like there were so many kids that probably didn't actually have ADD. They probably had trauma, and people just weren't trauma informed. That's a side tangent. But it is an extremely common thing that happens. And the easiest way to explain this is that we've unfortunately, and this goes along with the obsessive thinking and the managing emotions and all of that, we've unfortunately just developed a lot of like really bad mental habits in these relationships, and they were developed as a form of survival. So oftentimes, like, we're kind of used to dissociating in conversations, but we had to do that back then to protect ourselves. So sometimes it's just one of those like bad mental habits that goes. And unfortunately, why we can kind of veer off into daydream space is because we've suppressed so much at the same time too, like so much information, and we've suppressed so many emotions that they're kind of, now that we're in a safe environment and we're not under this constant threat anymore, they kind of just come up at really inconvenient times. And because it's like, oh, I'm safe now, we can deal with this. So we have to remember that too. So just be really patient with yourself. And it's one of those things, if you find yourself doing it, you just have to redirect yourself back into it. And don't get mad at yourself. Don't judge yourself. That's the worst thing you can do. The worst thing you want to do is be your own emotional abuser. Just accept the fact, like, okay, I understand it's a normal process after what I've been through, but I need to get focused again. But like difficulty concentrating on daily task or work task or all that kind of stuff, it's a very, very common side effect of emotional trauma, 100%. Okay, so abused person leaves abuser, then shortly after gets with the new person and gets told they're trauma bonding. Oh, okay. Um, so how trauma? Okay, I'm gonna try to summarize this question. So essentially, it's like if someone who's been abused leaves their abuser, then very shortly after gets into another relationship and gets it is essentially is that like a form of trauma bonding or why? And honestly, in a way, I don't know if I would necessarily call that trauma bonding, because what trauma bond is, it's more about the emotional cycle in the relationship of abuse. What I call that, if you go from an abusive relationship and then go straight to another one, is, I'm trying to say this delicately because I kind of did it in a way. So, speaking from experience, I tried dating way too soon. And what I was doing was I was still putting my value in other people. Like I was so codependent and I didn't value myself enough where being alone was so terrifying. So in a way, the only way that I really felt secure was through a relationship. And finding my worth was through a relationship and having somebody pursue me and all that kind of stuff. So I don't know if I would necessarily call that trauma bonding because it's not quite the same. Um, as like what we refer to as trauma bond, like with a narcissist or whatnot. It's almost like a coping. It's almost like trauma coping through a relationship, is what I see the most. I don't know if that answered the question or not, and that's probably not what you were expecting me to say, but it's true. It's not quite the same thing as what we talk about in a trauma bond because a trauma bond really truly is a cycle. It's a cycle of love bombing and devaluation, re-love bombing, um, the manipulation and like all this kind of stuff, chemically what's going on in your brain, like that's really what a trauma bond is. But when you go from being abused and then you go straight into another relationship, what we're doing there is we're still valuing relationships too much. And that's what we're looking. Here's a better way of putting it. Actually, we're looking, instead of us healing ourselves, we're looking for someone else to heal us, and that's very, very dangerous. And I don't say that judgmentally because, hi, I'm the problem. It's me. I did that. Um, but it that's kind of what's going on. And honestly, like I made amends to that guy because it was not fair to him, and I ended up hurting him, and because I was looking for healing through somebody else, and that was kind of my wake up call, honestly, because he was such a sweet guy. I was just like, okay, I need to take a break from all this and just work on myself. I'm glad I did, because by the time I did start dating again, girl, you can ask my fiance. Date number 2, I laid it out. I was like, like here's what's okay, here's what's not okay. I was like, I'm not interested in wasting my time. So if you are, like, there's the door. Enjoy your life. Don't waste my time. Surprised he stuck around, honestly. Yeah, here's the problem. Okay, so you said I've been told so many versions of trauma bond. I don't know what essentially what's real and what's not. That's kind of the problem. So when I first started doing all this, I I self-proclaimed that I was kind of like one of the OGs, but in a way, I was kind of one of the original people on TikTok that really started doing this. Um, Kind of, sort of. There's been people that have been doing it for years on YouTube and stuff, but we'll just say it's very buzzwordy now. And I think that there's people that talk about this, but they don't have the same motive that like me and some of the other people that I'm very close with, like the Narc Avengers and all that. I know that our motives are pure why we do it. But unfortunately, it's just become very buzzwordy. And it's like anybody and everybody's a coach now. And people are throwing around terms that they don't really know what they're talking about. And that's honestly like, this is a little tidbit. So I'm going to be relaunching my coaching community that I have because I just started a coaching community back in April. Like I'm working with the founding members right now, but I'm going to relaunch it probably again like in June. And that's the whole reason why I even started this coaching community is because it's like there's so much information out there and some of it is not right. And unfortunately, it's like whatever the algorithm decides to push, and it's not what is always accurate. So like my coaching community, all we talk about is like the healing part. And like we don't even necessarily talk a whole lot about like the abuse cycle or all that. There's plenty of information out there. We talk about like I give them weekly challenges and there's a piece of content that's done every week, like specifically for that you can't find anywhere else. And because I was just like, we need to like get the facts and get what we need. We need to stop. There's so much about the what is this, and there's not enough information about well, how do we get over this? So I love the coaching community. It's one of my favorite things that I'm able to do. I want to do your course, but I did a trauma bond course, and honestly, I'm no better. Um, Send me a message. Maybe what might work better for you um, is maybe something like the group coaching because you can actually work with the person or not. Um, but send me a DM. We'll chat. The weekly challenges are posted in the training video channel, Brandy. I actually posted it today too. So that you have to go onto the Discord thing. It's on that channel. If you still need help with it, just text me on there. Because yeah, if you're not getting them, you should be. Now I will be honest. I just throw myself under the bus out here on live in front of everybody. I did forget to do a weekly challenge last week because I forgot that there was 5 weeks in May this year. So I only had 4. And I got back from vacation like on Tuesday and I was like, wait, why am I short? Weekly challenge. It's like, oh. Yeah, so Brandy, everything's on Discord. Everything's on there. But I'll just I missed one last week because I was like, oh, there's 5 weeks in May, not 4. You're such a vibe. I'm surprised you're not viral and verified. That's sweet. I've had a couple of videos go viral. I've only had one go mega viral. That was actually recent, like literally 3 weeks ago. I had a video hit 2 million views. I've had several hit several 100,000. And the way that yeah, it's fun. Like it is. It's fun just because it is. Like when anybody likes that validation of like if you put something out there and it's responded well or whatever. But the way that I've always kind of looked at it is that's not ultimately it's not why I do it. I do it for the work, like and helping people and watching people's transformation. Like that's truly why I do what I do. And if that means I would rather do content that's helpful and stuff and not necessarily and not helpful content can go viral. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But like I focus a little bit more on that than trying to chase an algorithm. Because if I try to chase an algorithm, it sucks the fun out of it. Like it truly does. Because there was a little bit of period of time, if I'm honest, when I started doing this more full time, where I was getting very stressed out about it. It just completely robbed me of the joy of what I do. And so it's like, you know what? I'm not going to chase an algorithm. If it happens, great. If it doesn't, it'll see who it's supposed to see. So that's kind of my mindset. But I appreciate the compliment. That's really sweet. Let me make sure I didn't miss any questions. Mm-mm-mm. Okay, what time is it? Okay, so does anybody else have, or does anybody have any questions about like the obsessive thinking cycle or about managing emotions or anything like I like to, well, just questions on anything, I guess, really, because I still have about like 30 minutes. So um, I'll just kind of leave it open to open questions now. While I'm waiting on questions, just in case you're hopping on and you haven't heard this announcement yet, I'm starting group coaching tomorrow. It's at 6 p.m. on tomorrow's Tuesday. Yeah. 6 p.m. Central Time. We're going to be talking about the four most common struggles and how to overcome them. It's called Unshackled and Set Free. And it's emotional management strategies, reducing the intensity of your triggers, anxiety management, and processing the grief. It's 4 sessions total, and it's all strategies on how to overcome each one of those. Anybody that's registered, they do get a recording of it. So if you don't miss it, or if you miss a session or something like that, like don't freak out. You'll get recordings of it. Excuse me. But I'm only taking a max of 15 people. I know I've had a couple more sign up today, so I'm not 100% sure how many more spots I have left, but I am still taking spots for that. And I love the group coaching aspect because it kind of helps break some of the isolation. You get to meet other people that are going through exactly what you're going through, but more importantly, you get specific strategies on how to overcome these things, and you get worksheets with it. I'm going to give a challenge at the end of every coaching session of the 4, and we'll review it on the next session. How did this go? Is this working? Is it not? Do we need new strategies? Blah, blah, blah. So I do have that going on. Okay, there's some questions. So if you want to sign up for that, if you're on TikTok, just go to the link in my bio. And if you're on Facebook or YouTube, just look at the comments. I posted the link in there a couple of times. Do you just Whoa, I don't know what just happened. Do you just focus on romantic relationships or any narc abuse? So the content and the stuff that I coach on, like in the group coaching or like my course or one-on-one coaching, whatever it might be, it is just about narcissistic abuse. It's not just about romantic. Especially like in one-on-one coaching, it's very personalized to like the situation and like their particular struggle. And even in group coaching, it's kind of the same way too. And I tried really hard in the course that I made to not make it romantic relationship language, like I just said, like the narcissist or whatever. Because the reality of the situation is, regardless of what the relationship was, whether it was romantic or platonic or work environment or parent or sometimes like child to parent, whatever it might be, the cycle of abuse is the same. And unfortunately, the mental obstacles that we have after it are the same. So yeah, to answer that question, I don't just focus on that. I do talk about it a lot because the relationship for me that kind of like catalyzed this whole journey was a romantic relationship, but it wasn't the only. Once I started learning about it, I realized, oh, this isn't the first time I've dealt with this. This makes a lot of sense now. Like I've dealt with it in work environment. I've dealt with it from some extended family members. I had a friend that was, fortunately, I caught on to it pretty quick, but you know, I've dealt with it in other aspects of it, but I do talk about it in a romantic sense a lot. You've been so helpful. I'm going to take your ruminating class soon. Oh, awesome. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to DM me. Oh, I have trouble sleeping. I wake up frequently and it takes ages to go back to sleep. Oh, okay. So I struggled with this really, really bad. So anybody else on here on any of the platform, anybody struggling with insomnia since leaving the narcissistic ex? Give me a little thumbs up or tell me if that's you, because I wouldn't. And I'm asking for a reason because I would not be surprised if it's several people that's on here that are dealing with insomnia. And so when I ask y'all to do that, it's so that way you can see like, oh, I'm not the only one that's struggling with this. So yeah, they're coming on TikTok at least. So yeah, insomnia, and it's a really really difficult thing. And again, very common side effect of emotional trauma, 100%. So I will be honest, I did eventually have to start taking melatonin because I just could not sleep. I absolutely could not. Um, The only thing with melatonin was I ended up finding like a protein powder that worked better for me. It didn't make me feel as groggy in the morning because melatonin, it was really hard for me to like wake up and get out of bed. By the way, I recently took NyQuil and I hadn't taken NyQuil in a while because I was kind of feeling under the weather for a couple of days. I had some very weird dreams on NyQuil the other day. If you want to hear the story, I posted a video about that on TikTok the other day. Quite odd. But Um, anyway, so I did. I that's how bad it was. I needed help. So I did start taking melatonin. It was helpful. But the other thing that actually really helped me, and here's what I have also realized now. One of the strategies that I actually do with insomnia, if I am dealing with it currently, I journal. So I journal before I go to bed because one of the things that keeps me awake is that there's something that I haven't processed or there's something that I'm stuck on, whether I'm just like really stressed out or maybe a situation's happening. It just in life and life happens. For me, it's just stress related. Like I'm in grad school, I do this job. I have 3 kids. I'm engaged. Like I have a lot going on. So unfortunately, my stress level can be a little high. So I do journal before I go to bed. Now I do it as needed. Back when I was like healing directly from all of this, I was doing it every single night and I did it every day for 6 weeks. Like I'm not exaggerating, every single day. But what I learned is that if I'm not able to go to sleep, regardless of how tired I am, if I just can't get my brain to shut off, it's like, then something's going on. And I picture it like a brain dump. Like I just need to dump it out of my brain onto a piece of paper. So try that too. There's no right or wrong way to journal. Just start writing. And even if you aren't sure what to start with, just write what's on your mind. It is very, very helpful. Sorry, I have a lot of comments going. Yeah, you do have to be careful with melatonin. I don't know if I can necessarily say it can be addictive, but unfortunately, if you take supplemental melatonin for too long, then your body does kind of naturally stop producing it naturally. I didn't say that very well. Y'all know what I'm saying. Y'all get the vibe. Y'all get the gist. I need more caffeine today. My words are just like not working. I go through spurts of this. Okay. Sorry, I just had to kind of watch the time because I have a live that I'm doing with my coaching community tonight also. So I just want to make sure I don't overdo it. Have you ever wondered if you maybe are the narcissist? I think everybody does. Anybody that was in the relationship at some point in time, they question if they were the problem. But ultimately, no. I know I'm not, because I had to remind myself of the reality. Now, am I saying that I'm a perfect individual? Absolutely not. But I think every single person, and here's the reason why, like why we wonder this, is because we are constantly told that we're the problem through the whole relationship. I was told the entire relationship that I had an attitude problem, which is why he talked to me the way that he did. And it's like, okay, I know I'm gay, I know I'm Latin, and I know that I have an attitude when I want one. And because of that, I know for a fact I don't have an attitude right now. So then, but he would have me convinced that, oh, my eyebrows furrowed a certain way, or like I breathed too heavy or whatever. And it's like, well, I have an attitude. You have an attitude with me. It's like I heard that on repeat for 18 months. Um, and it's just like I know when I have an attitude. I'm very capable of having one, and I'm okay admitting that. And but I know I don't. Oh, if you're on Eastern time, if you're on Eastern time, you're an hour ahead of me because I'm on Central. So like it's 5:10 my time right now. How, okay, let me read this again. I don't know why I'm like not processing things when I read them very well today. So sorry guys. Thank you for being patient with me. um, let's see. Okay, how do you feel good for getting away if you were the one discarded? I don't know why I'm having a hard time processing that question. I had to. It's not just you. Like this was earlier. Ask my friend on Facebook. I did the same thing with her. I was like, I'm not processing. Are you talking? So with this question, how do you feel good for getting away if you were the one discarded? Are you? Is it like a guilt? Like it's like a guilt related question, or is it like how to almost like get over the fact that you were discarded? Like to get to the point where it's like I'm not sad anymore, but I'm glad I was discarded. I just want to make sure I actually answer the question you want me to answer. If you're still on here. How do you find your self worth after getting out of a narcissistic relationship? That is a very loaded question. I'm just going to be honest, it's a process and it is not one that you can rush. Um, oh, I highly, highly recommend therapy and or coaching. Um, and the reason why is because it just helps guide you. Like first, okay, this is my little thing about coaching versus therapy because I am a coach. I'm getting my doctorate in occupational therapy, so it's not the talk therapy; it's more the strategy side of mental health, um, like the how tos. I love talk therapy, but that's not what I as an OT do. I do more of like um, the day to day things, like that, and that's what OTs just do in general. We help you with your day to day independent living. Anyways, but coaching and therapy for me, they work really well together, but I don't think one replaces the other because the therapy is kind of more like what happened along your lifespan that has gotten us to where we're at and to accept the kind of behaviors that we accept. But what I do in coaching is it's like I said, the day-to-day things like, okay, here's what we're going to focus on this week. Here's the goals that we're going to set. Here's what we're going to do when you start thinking about your ex. Here's how you correct that thought process. It's more the day-to-day things. And I just didn't really, and I love my therapist. Like, don't get me wrong, loved my therapist, still do. But I didn't get a lot of that in therapy. It was more the journey, which was valid and which was important. So therapy helped me with the self-worth part a lot. I will tell you though, one thing when it comes to the self-worth is oftentimes when we struggle with self-worth, what has happened is we have searched for evidence. How do I want to word this? Okay. What's probably happened to us at some point in time is either someone has said something to us or a situation that has happened that made us feel unworthy. And what we did, and this is just how our brain does sometimes, is when we are told this new story about unworthiness, is we subconsciously look for evidence to validate that story. So it's like, okay, well, I was unworthy because I didn't make straight A's. I was unworthy because I was heavier than the other guys in my class. I was unworthy because I, you know, was friends with all the girls, but nobody really wanted to date me. Wonder why. I'm just kidding. But I had these evidences of why I wasn't good enough. I was second in my class, not first. So it's like I had all these things about how, and I proved to myself why I wasn't worthy. any story that we continue to support. Whoop, sorry, I got a little. Look, hang on. If you're on Facebook, this doesn't apply to you, but okay, there we go. Sorry. I stopped talking if you're on my TikTok because my battery said it was low, so you didn't miss anything. So anytime that we have some kind of story that we've continued to validate with evidence is going to turn into a belief system. And so what has happened over the course of people's life, and I'm just going to keep it on me. So what has happened to me over the course of my lifetime is I developed a belief system based on evidence that I wasn't good enough. And I had a story that I was telling myself about myself that didn't serve me. And it was also never supposed to be my story. So what I had to do is first and foremost, I had to start to figure out what my actual story about myself was. And that was a really painful thing to come to terms with. I'm starting to get emotional about it because I was really not nice to myself. And being able to, first of all, be honest about how I really viewed myself. And I had to ask myself some hard questions like, okay, well, that's it. No, ma'am. So I had to ask myself questions like, okay, when I look in the mirror, like, what do I see? Like if I had 3 words that really, how would I describe myself? And it was like really, really painful to like discover this stuff. And it was a discovery because I never really took the time to ask myself, how do I feel about myself? And we'll just say I wasn't nice to me. And so because of that, it made sense why I was seeking value by everyone else around me because I didn't value myself enough at all. And so what I had to do was I had to start, and I actually talk about this in my course. I have a whole week dedicated to this kind of thing. But what I did was I started to ask myself, like, okay, what are some positive attributes that people have said about me? Like, so if I can't think of any about myself necessarily, other than basic generic things, like I have nice hair, like, what are some positive things that people have said about me in the past? And I would write those out because I didn't have the capacity to really recreate my own story on my own. So I had to kind of do the same process where I used outside evidence, but in a positive way. So, it's like I've been told that I light up a room. I've been told by people that, that they feel safe around me. So it's just like certain things that people have told me in the past about myself. And that was able to start, help me create a foundation of starting to tell myself a new story. And I know this sounds really hokey, and please just bear with me for a second, but I started to do affirmations. And the very first time I ever tried affirmations years ago, not this time around I'm talking about right now, but years ago, I thought they were a hoax. And I was like, this doesn't do jack crap. And because I was only doing part of the work, when you just say the affirmations and you're trying to like reestablish a new belief system and all you do is say it, you're only doing half the work. And that's what I was doing the first time is I would just say these things every day. I didn't believe anything I was saying. It was just this, and, almost kind of had like an attitude about it, but I was doing it because everybody said, I knew my therapist, like, I would just start doing affirmations. That's only half the work. Saying it is part 1. Part 2, it's the same process as you have to look for evidence to back up your new affirmations. So if like one of my affirmations that I say is good things always happen to me. So when I'm driving to wherever I'm going, if I catch like 5 green lights in a row, it's like, I've caught 5 green lights in a row. Good things do always happen to me. So I'm actively looking for evidence for these affirmations that I have. And because again, anytime that you have evidence to support a thought, it turns into a belief system, but I was doing it in a positive way. So another one that I say is like, everything works out for me every day in every way. So if like something worked out my way, it's like, oh my gosh, see, look, everything does work out in my way every day. So you have to look for the evidence of your affirmations too. And when I started to do that, then that's when it started to turn into a more positive belief system. And if I'm honest with you guys, like very transparently honest, I still do struggle with my self-worth and how I value myself because it has been such a lifelong struggle. I can't like I left my narcissistic ex 3 years ago next weekend, actually. So it doesn't just go away overnight. Like, I mean, we're talking about 28 years of belief systems that I've had to unwind and unpack and unravel. Um, I am so much further along than I was 3 or 4 years ago. Um, but I still struggle with it. And I just am gracious towards myself. And I just remind myself I'm actively working on it and I'm actively getting better. It's not going to happen overnight. It's a continual journey. And this is, hear me that hear me this. What does that mean? Hear me on this. Um, don't let anybody tell you, like I am very passionate about this. Do not let anybody tell you that it takes you forever or you never really get over a narcissist, because I had someone tell me that at the very beginning of my journey, and they said, well, you never really get over it, or it takes years and years and years to get past this. I 100% do not believe that, and here's why. Getting over the actual narcissistic person doesn't take as long as we think. We actually can get over the person pretty darn quickly because we kind of start to see like how awful they are. It's like, nah, like I got to the point where it was like I was disgusted by the thought of him, but that doesn't mean I wasn't dealing with some things. But it's like him as a person, it's like I didn't want anything to do with. Then it was I have to get over the trauma of his actions. And then it was like once I could get over that, then it's like, okay, I've gotten through the immediate trauma. I've let go of the actions that he put on me. Now let's talk about how we got here. And even though the narcissistic relationship is what got me to the place, well, I don't know if I like saying that. It was the event in my life that made me start to evaluate things, because I don't believe that made me, I'm the one that made me stronger. The trauma didn't, I did. But that may have been what made me start asking myself these questions. That part, like part 3, that's the part that does take longer, but that's really not about my narcissistic ex. That's about things that have just happened in my life that got me there. It really probably only took me 6 to 8 weeks to get over the narcissistic person and the trauma specifically from him. And then everything else that unfolded, it's like, okay, well, we need to unpack all this because I'm not doing this shit again. And that part does take longer. So one question and all the things. Okay, I probably have time for since I'm taking so long to answer questions today, I probably have time to answer one more. Let me see if there's another one I missed. I signed up for the group coaching workshop. Yay! I can't wait to meet you tomorrow. I'm actually really excited about it. Well, thank you. Does the course address how to stop crying, wishing you had done better so they didn't discard you? So the court, I mean, that's a very specific question. The course does talk about mental processes like that. Like what could I have done better, or is there anything that I could have, should have, would have done? Was I good enough? Was I this? Like these common questions that we ask ourselves. Yes, it does cover that. That specific one, I don't think is listed. Well, actually, no. Like, what could I have done better? Yeah, it's mentioned in the course. There's a whole week on correcting thoughts and belief systems and all of that. And again, if you have questions or anything, feel free to DM me. But you can also go to the link in my bio, and it's called the Breaking Free from Rumination course. There's a link straight into there. Yeah, sorry. Oh, yay! I'm signed up also. I can't wait to meet everybody tomorrow. That's exciting. So again, what I'm talking about with people signing up tomorrow, I'm doing a group coaching. It's called Unshackled and Set Free. It's 4 sessions total. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about how to overcome the 4 most common struggles after you leave a narcissist. And that's emotional management, your anxiety and paranoia, reducing the intensity of your triggers, and processing the grief. And it's all strategies on how to process and deal with each one of those things. It's sorry, my brain just stopped working. It starts tomorrow, Tuesday at 6 p.m. Central Time. And like I said, it's 4 sessions total. It's the next 4 Tuesdays. Even if you can't make it live, if you've registered and paid, you get a video copy of the actual coaching and stuff. So what I do is I record the sessions, but if anybody asks questions or anything, I cut out where like nobody's in the video except for me. It's just the coaching content, if that makes sense. So you get a recording of that and you have that. And oh my God, my brain. If you prepay for the sessions, it's $80 total, and it makes it like $20 a session, or you can break it up into like 3 payments of 40, which makes it $30 a session. So that's what people are saying that they're signing up for. So we start that tomorrow. I'm really excited about it. I personally really like the group coaching atmosphere, because you just get to meet and see people like, oh, other people have the same exact struggle that I do. So it helps break that sense of isolation a lot. So if you're on TikTok, just go to the link in my bio and you'll find that. And if you are on Facebook or YouTube, there's a couple comments with the link in there and you can find it. And it is Central Time. Right. So if it's 7 p.m. Eastern Time, yes, it would be 6 p.m., right? Because y'all are an hour ahead of me if you're Eastern Time, because I'm Central. It's 5:26 right now Central Time. So if you're in Eastern Time, that'll help you. I think it's 7 p.m. Eastern. And yes, it's technically on Google Meet, which works exactly like Zoom. Those are good questions. Sorry, I keep asking questions that have long answers. It's okay. Honestly, you could ask me a question like, "Is the sky is blue?" and I'll talk about it for 5 minutes. So it's not, it's not your questions. It's homey. The sessions are no longer than an hour and 15 minutes. I'm going to try to keep them at an hour, but max an hour and 15. And like, I'll have like some worksheets and stuff for you guys that you can because essentially what I do is at the end of each session, it's like, okay, here's what we're going to be working on for the next week. And here's homework and this and that. And then we meet back again the next time. How did it go? Did we struggle with anything? Is it working? Is it not? Google Meet literally works exactly like Zoom. Like it works exactly like it. Honestly, I kind of like it a little bit better. It's a little bit more user-friendly. So even if you don't have a Gmail account, it's just like, you just open up a regular browser and just click the link that's sent to you. It's pretty easy. Well, thank you. I'm in Canada. I want to join your group. Oh, yes. So if you are in Canada, let me know, because I actually have to create a different, well, you can either sign up through PayPal and pay that way if you're in Canada, but if you don't want to do that, that's fine. I just have to actually create a different checkout thing, so I can accept it. So thank you for messaging me, and I will check that as soon as I get off here because I can't check it while I'm live. So yeah, I'm glad you said that. Hello from New Jersey. How often do you go live? Not as often as I should. I literally say this every time I go live. I'm probably going to start going live more. Like I'm a broken record at this point. I am going live again tomorrow. It's on my schedule for tomorrow that I'm going to go live again. What time did I say I was going to? If I keep myself on schedule tomorrow, I told myself to go live around 1:30. We'll see if that happens. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I'm really terrible about it. Yeah. But my goal is always to go live once a week. Does it happen? No. It's really probably more like twice a month is how it actually happens. But I do what I can. I'm just the problem is like when I'm not in school, I almost don't do as well. Like right now I'm on break from school. I don't go back until June 6th. Um, and my problem is when I have too much free time, I'm almost not as structured because it's like, oh, I have all this time. Like I don't have school and I don't have this and that. Blah, blah. So I like have all this free time and I'm not as disciplined with my time because in my mind it's like, oh, I have all day. I don't got anything to do. I don't got anywhere to go. But when I'm in school, it's like, okay, I only have like 4 hours to get my stuff done because I've been in school all day. So I'm much more disciplined with my time when I'm in an active semester. So that's one of my toxic traits, but it's fine. Okay. All right. So one last time. Sorry if you've been on the whole time. You've heard me say this like 7 times now, but just one last time before I hop off. So I am starting my group coaching. It's tomorrow at 6 p.m. Central Time, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's 4 total sessions. And what we're going to be talking about is how to overcome the 4 most common mental struggles after leaving a narcissist, which is emotional management, reducing the intensity of your triggers, anxiety and paranoia, and processing the grief. It's all going to be specific strategies on how to overcome those individually. And if you sign up and you register, even if you end up not being able to make some of the sessions, you do get recordings of all the sessions. So you will still get that. You'll get the content no matter what. Obviously, I prefer you to come live because I want to meet you and all of that. But if you can't, it's okay. And the cost for it, it's if you prepay for all 4 sessions, it's $80, mix in $20 a session, or you can break it up into 3 payments and it's $40 per payment, which makes them about $30 a session. So those are the 2 options for that. If you are interested and you are not from the US, please message me. So thank you again over here on YouTube for telling me that, because I will need to make a different checkout for you for that, because unfortunately the platform I use doesn't take all currencies unless you use PayPal. You can do that option. But if y'all have questions on it, feel free to DM me. And if you're on TikTok, just go to the link in my bio. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, you can just scroll through the comments and I've put the link in there a couple of times. With that said, I'm going to hop off here and take a break because I have a live event I'm doing with my coaching community in an hour. So I'm going to take a little bit of a break and mentally reset for that and get ready for that. But y'all, this was like one of my favorite lives I've done. Y'all asked really great questions, and thank you for allowing me to be vulnerable with you guys and share my story and answer y'all's questions. And thank you for interacting. It's always, I get nervous going on live because it's like if I don't get questions, I don't know what to talk about this whole time. So anyways, so yeah, if y'all have questions or anything, like I said, don't hesitate to DM me about the group coaching as well. And if I keep myself on schedule, I'm going to go live tomorrow. My goal is around 1:30 in the afternoon, which is kind of early, but I'll either be on here or I'll be on Instagram. So y'all can come hang out with me again. But I hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday. And I hope you have a good week as well. And I will see you guys soon. Bye, y'all.